Well, joining us live with more on the war with Israel and Hamas is Ido Moed, the Israeli ambassador to Canada. Ambassador, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us here on CP24. And we have lots to talk about, so I want to get right into it. And before we talk about the latest information from today, I was wondering if you can comment on your release that you put out yesterday in regards to the explosion at the Al-Ahli Hospital and shed some light on some of the evidence that Israeli officials, along with U.S. Intelligence officials, collected that determined that this was a misfire from within the Gaza territory.
Hello, Jimmy. Thank you for having me this morning. First, before we start, I would like to express my deepest condolences to Canadian families who lost their loved ones in this horrific attack that took place in Israel. What happened the other day at Al-Ahli Hospital was actually yet another double war crime committed by Hamas and its partners. When a misfire happens, that through a misfire of a Palestinian Jihad, Islamic Jihad missile from the Gaza Strip aimed at Israel, one of the rockets in that salvo fell short and fell on a hospital and killed so many innocent people. It's horrific and tragic to see victims of this unspeakable terrorism on any side. Hamas terrorist organization uses the population as a human shield, and this is the evidence of that. They target civilian population on the Israeli side. They've butchered and slaughtered 1,400 people without hesitation, kidnapped others, elderly, Holocaust survivors, children, babies, 6-month-old babies, pregnant women, anybody they could land their filthy hands on. And so we are waging a war, just like you mentioned right now, Prime Minister Netanyahu said, we are waging a war against a terrorist organization that is not only horrendous, but is actually posing a threat to the region and maybe even further.
And this strike on this hospital obviously resulted in widespread condemnation, rallies around the world. When this news of this strike broke, news agencies all around the world basically reported that this was an Israeli strike, and they took the word of the Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas. And I'm curious, what does this tell you about what was your reaction to that, and what does this tell you about the other war that's ongoing for the Israelis, and that's the information war?
Thank you, Jim. I think this is a very important question. I think that a lot of news media are asking themselves the last day or two, how come they took over the words of actually it was a pure propaganda that was done by Hamas, took it for a fact and published it quickly as if something took place which did not happen, which they could not verify, actually. They did not verify the facts before publishing it. This is not just a war that Israel is waging. This is actually a war in a period when we have so much false news and false information. And it teaches all of us that we have to check our facts first before we come out and talk about anything. Israeli Defense Forces were able to conduct a very quick investigation and publish the findings and the evidence, which were, by the way, taken from Al Jazeera, among others, to show that this was a misfire.
I want to focus on the U.S. president's trip to Israel. It's wrapped up. He's announced $100 million in aid, humanitarian aid. But unfortunately, in many of the meetings that he was scheduled with his Arab counterparts in Egypt and Jordan, that got derailed by this hospital explosion. How disappointing was that for you? And what were you hoping that would have come out of those meetings?
There is, with and without those meetings, a very clear understanding on many countries' side that Israel needs to win this war. That's clear. We were hoping this will be done on a more public fashion during the visit, and I think it is still clear when we are talking about the cooperation and the support that we're getting from all around the world. So that's really the point what we are aiming for, and this is what is happening because we know this is a very just war that needs to be won, and needs to be won decisively and quickly.
Ambassador, I want to turn to the massive evacuation order for Palestinians, this enormous humanitarian crisis that many Palestinians are facing as they're making their way south towards the Rafah border crossing. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what Israel's role will be to ensure the safe passage for those people as they make their way south, and also their role in getting the humanitarian aid to the people that need it most, which are the Palestinians, and avoiding it falling into the hands of Hamas, who historically have a history of stealing the resources and the funding that makes its way to the Palestinians. Talk about Israel's role in all of this.
Thank you. Just to follow on what you just said, Hamas stole 24,000 gallons of fuel, liters of fuel from the United Nations Relief Organization just the other day, including medical supplies and so on. So they have no hesitation in taking away whatever supplies are necessary for the civilian population. So Israel has, not many people know perhaps, a military unit that deals with cooperation with international organizations that are active in the Gaza Strip in order to facilitate as much as we can humanitarian assistance to the population in Gaza without any direct contact with Hamas, of course. What we are trying to create, and we've already worked on and tried in the past few days unsuccessfully because Hamas prevented it, is create humanitarian corridors so that people who wanted to leave could leave and that relief could come in. It's a very complex situation. The Hamas destroyed the crossings to Israel. There is only one crossing that is operational. That's the one with Egypt. We know that terrorists are trying to flee. The cowards they are, and we know that they're trying to get ammunition in. So we're trying to monitor that in cooperation with everybody.
Well, that's my follow-up question. Are you concerned about the potential for any arms or weapons being smuggled into the country through any of these large shipments, the dozens of tractor trailers that are waiting to enter and cross Rafah into Gaza? What is Israel doing to ensure that nothing sinister is in those shipments?
We found sacks of rice filled with munition in some of the stuff that these terrorists were carrying into Israel. So we have all the reason to suspect that these shipments may include munitions. We are trying to work together with everybody, including the Egyptians, the United Nations, and other involved, to make sure that whatever comes in is monitored and is safe and is indeed aimed for supporting the population.
Israel right now is facing one of its biggest challenges ever to bring these hostages home safely. Not only Israelis, Canadians, but nationals from all around the world. And Israel has had some miraculous hostage rescue operations. The raid in Antibes comes to mind. But this is different, Ambassador. And I was wondering if you can talk about the challenges that the IDF are facing right now to bring these hostages home safely. And what happens if they don't come home?
It's a horrendous situation, and it's unprecedented in so many ways. And one of them is that 203 people, at least, are held hostages somewhere in the caves and tunnels underneath the Gaza Strip. Who knows in what conditions? We know that Hamas did not hesitate to kill, maim, rape, and abuse anybody they lay their hands on. So we are very fearful for their fate, and the humanitarian status of the refugees of the hostages is very, very concerning to us.
Ambassador, I'm sure you can appreciate that this is a horrific situation, not only for the Israelis, but for the Palestinians who are going through this humanitarian crisis. And at a time when Palestinians are in desperate need of refuge, in desperate need of help. It was just the other day that King Abdullah from Jordan made it explicitly clear that there's a red line, that there will be no refugees in Jordan, there will be no refugees in Egypt. I'm wondering, what does that tell you? What does that indicate that, for all these countries who champion the Palestinian cause, not one of them are willing to take in any of these people as refugees and provide them safe haven, even if it's just for the interim basis while this war plays out?
I can tell you that from our perspective, we were trying to, and we will at some point, most probably, but I can't really say anything about that now, but we were trying to support the Palestinian population in Gaza, allow them for a better living, to facilitate more trade, economic improvement, and many other things. It's a tragedy. And so when all the countries are looking at what's going on there, of course, everybody's concerned about the spread of radicalization and of terrorism. I think that's a primary goal right now.
Ambassador, I got just a couple more quick questions for you. Along with Israel's war with Hamas, you also have some regional threats to the north with Hezbollah. There's been some mortar exchanges with Syria, from what we understand, that Israel did target some locations within Syria at the Aleppo airport. I'm wondering what are your short and long-term concerns about some of the regional instability and how volatile things can quickly get as this war drags on?
We are familiar with volatility. We act very responsibly. We react also very forcefully because we know that we have to be strong and we have to make sure that our adversaries, our enemies, understand that we are too strong for them to tackle. So that's what we're trying to do in all directions.
Ambassador, my last question, very much like 9/11 and Pearl Harbor, October 7th is one of the darkest days in Israel's history. This atrocity, I'm sure in many ways will have changed many people within your country. But given what happened, unlike the Nazis who tried to hide their war crimes, Hamas displayed it and live streamed it on social media. Given the horrific slaughter of innocent civilians, the kidnapping of Holocaust survivors, the burning of babies, and all the horrific things that played out, do you think in any way that Israel's critics and all the people who have been very anti-Israel and do not believe that they have a right to exist, do you think this has opened the world's eyes and given them a better look into what Israel is having to deal with, the security measures that they have to take, the unfortunate measures that they have to take, and when it comes to blockade, do you think that this atrocity has kind of opened your critics' eyes and make them better understand what you're dealing with?
We have to distinguish between those who disagree with Israel politically about what the solution should be, what would be the peaceful solution in the Middle East, and those who do not think that Israel has a right to exist. These are two distinguished groups. And we are fighting against those who want to eradicate Israel from the map, and we will not allow that. Since the Holocaust, it was clear once the State of Israel was established, this will not happen again. It will not. And we will make sure that it will not happen again. I think that many countries around the world understand that when we are talking about radicalization, there is a difference between those who support political goals and those who incite for hate and for violence. And so we have to be very wary about that. We have to understand that we cannot tolerate as democracies hate and violence against other people. That is unacceptable.
Israeli Ambassador to Canada, Ido Moed, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us on CP24. We wish nothing but the safe return of the hostages and peace for both Israelis and Palestinians. I appreciate your time.
Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.